Radhanath Swamiji is a spiritual guide to so many and a teacher of Bhakti Yoga, which in essence really is a yoga of love. Radhanath Swamiji's new book has recently been released, The Journey Within, and his first book, The Journey Home, is an inspirational page-turner. Radhanath Swamiji is a beacon to me and an inspiration, I believe, of our divine potential. We've recently started a partnership with the Bhakti Center in New York, and a lot of the young monks and ex-monks are here. And with Radhanath Swamiji's blessing and encouragement, we started collaborating on a program for conscious transitioning in both centers. The Alliance for Conscious Transitioning is about the all, which is what Bhakti Yoga is about, because all religions are part of the all, while offering education on how other cultures approach this sacred passage we can learn from others. As Radhanath Swamiji says, all the different names of the sun does not make it any different, and God is like the sun, it's universal. The Alliance offers us a reminder of our mortality, so we are in gratitude and conscious for the gift of each and every moment. I believe that our inherent avoidance of death is a knowing we really do not die, and the conversation and the education opens us up to who we really are, divine beings of love. And thank you all for being here. This is such a sacred, incredible time.
I'm very honored and very grateful and very happy to be with all of you this evening in this very sacred space. It's very special. Thank you. I am your puppet. You could pull my strings according to your wishes.
A lot of these questions are boiled down from questions that people have asked us to ask Radhanath Swamiji. And I'm going to kind of just put it into two questions. The first piece of it is, how do we start to prepare for death? And they say that your state of consciousness at that time makes a very big difference.
Death is perhaps the greatest mystery of life because it's inevitable. There's a saying, sure as death, which means something's really certain. When an infant is born, there's so many things that we really don't know will happen in that person's life. And if you ask 5 different astrologers, they'll probably give you 5 different explanations. So there's so many differences that, so many changes that happen in life. But one thing that's certain, we know that someday that person will have to depart from the body they're in, a phenomena that we call death. And in this world we live in, that's really the foundational cause of fear, is our own mortality. And fear is one of the greatest motivators in this world. Most of the industries are directly or indirectly based on people's fear. Fear of how they look, fear of how they feel, fear of their economic security, fear of other countries, fear of other races, fear of other religions. But the basis of that is our own mortality. We can't really understand death unless we understand life. And when we understand life, then the truth of death can be experienced in its perspective. So this was, throughout the ages among philosophers, among sages, a basic question. Who am I? If you ask a person that question, they'll probably tell you their name. But you could change your name. So many people do change their names. I changed my name. Believe it or not, my mother and father in 1950 in Chicago at the Passivant Hospital did not name me Radhanath Swami.
Radhanath Swami Goldstein.
Not even that, actually. So we can change our names, and we can change our religion, we could change our nationality, we could change our minds. But we're not different people. And our body is always changing. When we're little embryos in the womb, we're just like little seeds that start to grow, and then little by little we start getting a little head and little fingers and little toes, and then our pancreas and our heart and our lungs start developing, and then we come out little babies, and we really don't know what's going on in the world. And then we grow into children, and then in America it's not easy, we become teenagers. Not easy for us or our parents. And then we become adults. Then we become middle-aged, old age. We dwindle. And as we come closer, death, the inevitability of death becomes very close to us. I was just with my father a couple weeks ago. He's 92 years old. And his awareness is very, very alert. But his body, there's always something happening. But he still drives every day. He goes to meet his friends. And they talk. And not long ago, he wanted me to take him somewhere that was about an hour distance. So I was driving, and because he's old and I live in India and I don't drive so much, so I was driving kind of carefully. And he said to me, "You drive like an old man." And he made me stop the car, and he took the driver's seat. He said, "We'll never get there the way you drive." But when he explains life, because he really goes back and he talks about his childhood, and he talks about Pearl Harbor Day, when World War II, and I was born on that day, so. But he has all these incredible memories. And every time he gives these memories, he says, "It seems like it was yesterday. Life just has gone by so fast." And I think, for some of us who are getting older, I'm 65 now, the days and the weeks and the months really go faster and faster with time. So who is the witness of the changes of all the bodies? And who's the witness of all the changes of the mind? And this is a universal principle, to understand who I am. Am I this body, or am I in this body? Am I this mind, or am I in this body and mind? And is it my body, or is it me body? Is it my mind, or is it me mind? We say my because we're in it. And who is that is in it? Seeing through the eyes, and hearing through the ears, and tasting through the tongue, and thinking through the brain, and loving through the heart. In Sanskrit, the true self, the conscious force, is called the Atma, or the spirit. In the West, sometimes Atma is translated as the soul. In the Bible, it is said, what profiteth a person who gains the whole world but loses their eternal soul? And the Gita, this is the basic principle of all knowledge, is to understand the nature of the soul. Because unless we really understand who I am, then everything we know is not really known properly. To know the knower. Najayate mriyate va kadachit. That means that the soul, there's no birth, there's no death. It's eternal. Dehino sminyata dehe komaram yovanam jada. The Gita tells, just as the soul is passing through this body, childhood, youth, old age, the soul is the witness. And similarly, at the time of death, it's another change. Nahanyate hanyamane saride. The soul does not die at death. It changes. Asamsijirnani yata vihaya. Just like we have a car, the body is like a car, and the mind is like the all that computer stuff that's in cars these days. GPS and the transmission, but we're the driver. We're the ones who are seeing through the windshield and making noise by pushing the horn and making the car move forward or backward or left or right. A car has no real purpose without a driver. And the car is going to get old. And we have to trade it in. And that's to the enlightened souls who have realized their eternal self. Death is that. It's a change. And what do we have a choice of how we're going to change and where we're going? The answer to that is yes and also no. Can I give an example?
Please.
If I go to JFK Airport, I'll see so many flights to so many different places of the world. So if I get on a flight to London, I choose the flight to London. And then when we take off and we're 30,000 feet above sea level and we're going the Atlantic Ocean, and I tell the airline hostess, I want to go to Los Angeles. They will say, well, we're sorry, but you're going to London. We say, well, I have my freedom of choice. I want to go to Los Angeles. And she will say, you had freedom before you got on the plane. But once you choose to get on the plane, you have no choice of where you're going. So we have a choice of what we're going to do, what we're going to speak, to some extent what we're going to think. And once we act, individual activities and the accumulation of our activities that determines our destination. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. So according to how we live our life, and according to the consciousness that we develop and acquire during our life, that will determine the destination of the Atma, or the soul, after it departs from this particular body. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. This is the principle according to the Vedas, that at the moment of death, whether we're conscious or unconscious, something happens in our subtle mind. Something happens where the accumulation of all of our thoughts and all of our desires and all of our words and all of our actions throughout our life, they culminate in a particular thought at death. And that determines where the soul will go. Antakali chamamiva smaran maktva kalevaram. If we remember God with love, we attain the ultimate liberation. If we have accumulated many desires due to cruel activities or selfish activities or arrogant activities, then that's going to determine our state of consciousness at the time of death. And that will influence, the destination of the immortal soul. So in many ways, death is like final exam. And I haven't gone to school in a long time, but you have so many tests during the semester, and the tests are there to help you to take seriously preparing yourself for the final exam. And a lot of whether you pass your class or to what level you pass your class is determined by the final exam, yes? And in many ways, all the courses, all the classes, if it wasn't for the final exam, students probably wouldn't take very seriously their studies. So the final exam is good, because it kind of puts pressure on you to really learn the subject, assimilate the subject. So we know that the final exam is going to be there. And the various tests of life, tests in the form of temptations and fears and celebrations and challenges, they're all like tests. How are we going to respond? Are we going to grow? And then at the time of death, it is like that final exam. And in the Vedic perspective, Bhagavad Gita is a summary study of all the Vedas. It gives us this explanation that life is meant to prepare ourselves to really understand deeply what life is, what the purpose of life truly is, what our real goal is, what our nature is, who we are, so that when the final exam actually comes, we're really prepared. And then death is not just a dreary entrance into a dark void forever, but it's the doors opening into a light and a love that we're all seeking. And we can actually find the light of that love within our life. When we find it within our life, then death is just it's just a natural transition. For an enlightened soul, life and death are the same, because there is no death. There's only life.